I'm Matt.
I'm Shane.
And if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that thumbs up button real hard and make sure you subscribe to Comic Movie Marks.
And also click that little bell for all of the notifications.
Whee!
Always remember,
If Trailer Trash can do it,
anyone can do it.
hello and welcome everyone to another Comic Movie Marks video.
You clicked on the video. Today we are talking about the Disney Plus subscription service and also the continuation of, I guess, the Disney takeover.
Hashtag Disney rules your childhood.
Yeah, pretty much everything at this point is owned by Disney. I'm sure at some point my mortgage will be owned by Disney at the rate that it's going. It's insane. They can, try to repossess my home or what is it? Put a lien on my home for not paying their subscription service. You didn't go see my movie. Lien.
The first bank of Disney, any day now, any fucking day now. So Disney Plus came about, they announced it. I know we're kind of far behind on this, but hey, sometimes being patient works out, because more shit came out at the same time.
Newer information, I guess, has come out. Hulu is now all tied into this at the same time.
Bless you.
Achoo.
Did you just say Abe Lincoln?
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the other part. A Jew? No, man, I said achoo.
I forgot. So I just went back to the one I know, the well I know.
Yeah, the Abe Lincoln part's great too, but I digress.
A toll's a toll and a roll's a roll. If we ain't get no tolls, we ain't get no rolls.
I made that up.
This ain't exactly the Mrs. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so some of the quick details with Disney and Disney Plus.
Does Disney own Men in Tights now?
Probably. At this point, it's hard to keep up who owns what. So launching this November, I think it's November 12th to be exact. I don't have that right in front of me, but November 2019 for $6.99 per month or $69.99 per year, which is roughly $5.83 to save you a little bit on that. So significantly cheaper than most of the other streaming services. So right out the gate, they're saying, hey, come join the dark side and pay less money.
It's a whole new world.
Nice.
That's all I got.
All right. I could go into the lyrics, but I won't. I'll save you that pain. What we know so far that is supposed to be included, 9 episodic shows. These are new shows. We're starting to hear a lot of rumors about Loki, about the Winter Soldier, and some other TV shows that are supposed to be the Marvel episodic shows. We also know 500 films from Disney. Holy fuck. I didn't even realize they had 500 films, but I guess it makes sense. That will be on there. 7,000 episodes of Disney TV, and obviously Star Wars and Marvel movies will be on there as well. So already some pretty cool stuff. Some things that have been rumored that are kind of floating out there is the Fox library. The biggest one right now, all of the Simpsons seasons could potentially be included. We don't really know. This is just kind of speculation right now. But what we do know is what was acquired with the Fox deal was Simpsons, Family Guy, Modern Family, which is a very popular show on ABC now, Grey's Anatomy, which was, I believe, once a very popular show, probably still is, some classics like MASH, Mary Tyler Moore. There's a potential that they could really branch just a plethora of clientele, I guess, of different people. So many different age ranges from MASH, Mary Tyler Moore, Simpsons, Family Guy. We have all these different types of shows. So it's really fascinating what could be included on here.
To quote Jimmy Kimmel, we own Disneyland, we own Iron Man, we own Star Wars. At this point, the only cherished moment of your childhood that we don't own is jerking off.
Ah, fuck you.
They might own that eventually too.
I know if they buy X videos, I'm screwed.
Right? Pornhub? No. What are you doing?
Oh, you all get Disney princess ads. That's gonna be creepy.
I already get those for some odd reason. But continuing on, some things that we also know won't be included. ESPN right now, there hasn't been any types of details that have been released in terms of ESPN and Disney Plus. We also know that potentially there could be some discounts if you kind of merge everything together. There's the ESPN app, and then with more details to come, Hulu as well.
With ESPN and ESPN Plus, they have a partnership with the UFC now. And UFC, in order to watch pay-per-views, you actually have to have the ESPN Plus app. Very interesting what they're doing. Everything is being consolidated, eliminating third parties completely from the equation. The WWE network, the wrestling network. The main reason why they went to a network was they could produce their own shows and they don't have to pay the pay-per-view distributors anything for producing these pay-per-views that they do now. So it actually saves them a shit ton of money. And that's what the UFC is doing right now, going to ESPN Plus. You start seeing these grabs for all this content lately and eliminating third parties, almost trying to eliminate cable companies as well. The funny thing is, though, they're trying so hard to eliminate cable companies, but yet cable companies control the internet that they literally survive on in order for people to see these apps. It's quite fascinating to see that loop of fuckery.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to just run your data bill through the fucking roof. I have unlimited, but at some point I do get a text message from AT&T saying, hey, we're going to bog your internet or whatever the fuck it says.
We're going to choke your chicken.
Yeah, basically, like, we're going to throttle your data if you keep running it up, regardless of it being unlimited. So yeah, there is a full
it's
circle.
It's not unlimited.
Here. Exactly. It's not at any point.
When will the lies end?
I guess you can somewhat consider WWE to be a little bit ahead of their time. If you go back to what they were doing in the early 2000s when they purchased, if any of our listeners are familiar with this, they had purchased the rights to WCW and to ECW, to two other competing companies. But their main reason was to purchase the library. That was the main thing that they were after. So they knew the library is going to be incredibly valuable. And then they've swooped up some other small territory type wrestling companies at the time as well. Now you kind of see a lot of companies doing the very same thing now, where they're swooping up Fox, and we have Comcast that swoops up Sky Sports, which there's been a lot of competition just throughout all the different companies. Warner Media, they're trying to come up with their own streaming service, things like that. So it's really fascinating to kind of see it all unfold, especially as a wrestling fan, where we've seen and we've been down this road already before. Now it's just translating, I guess, to more of a broader audience.
One of the things, too, about picking up the Fox library for Disney is the Star Wars property, in which I haven't really seen anybody talk about this, so maybe I'm completely wrong on this aspect, because I figured hardcore Star Wars fans would probably be all enjoy about this, but the original Star Wars movies, technically in this new age, would be 4, 5, and 6. They were distributed by Fox. And then when George Lucas decided to update his movies, change his Blu-rays, to reformat it, he added some things that a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans don't like. You know, Han shooting at the same time.
Yeah.
Vader yelling no, obviously adding some CGI, and a lot of people hated that. But they've always wanted the original versions that were put in theaters on a better format, remastered in HD so they can watch them at home. Well, Fox owned that. And that was always the issue. When Disney acquired Star Wars from Lucas, Fox still has those distribution rights and the control of those original format. Well, now they own Fox, and I've always wondered if they would try to sell the streaming service with remastering those original Star Wars movies in HD on the streaming service in full HD as they originally were when they were released in theaters. Just something that came to mind when I saw this, and I could be wrong, and maybe that's not quite how it works, but because I haven't really seen anybody talk about that, so maybe I'm mistaken, but that is something I thought was very possible.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all, given the fact that Disney's trying to win over some of the hardcore Star Wars fans. From a lot of the things that I've seen, they really screwed the pooch, I guess, for lack of a better term, when it comes to
screw the mouse.
Yeah, when it comes to a lot of the hardcore Star Wars fans. And when they decided to start with Force Awakens with Episode 7, they did away with a lot of the books and things like that as being canon. So I know that pissed off a lot of Star Wars fans. Then you had the Rian Johnson film, The Last Jedi, which that pissed off hardcore Star Wars fans even again. So now they're going back to the well and they're trying to buy all that back with Episode 9. And that wouldn't surprise me if they said, hey, here's a great reason to have our streaming service. We're going to have the original iterations of these films on the streaming service. So that's a great point. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
As Disney continues to acquire more and more content for their app. Warner Brothers has their app coming out. NBC, Comcast, they're going to have theirs. Even CBS is gonna. You see this dive for content lately. AT&T now is, you can see this. They're pushing Warner Media and Warner Brothers to produce more content for TV, for movies, for their apps. And as we saw, this technically, in some sense, is a wrestling show because now officially AEW, All Elite Wrestling, is going to be put on TNT on Monday nights at 9 o'clock. No. AEW, All Elite Wrestling, has gone to TNT now, and they have a TV deal. A totally unproven wrestling organization has a very high-profile TV deal, and they have so much money backing them. TNA is sitting over there like, fuck!
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Oh, man, it's so fascinating just to see history repeat itself with AEW. They have a billionaire who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars backing them. All of a sudden, they're back on TNT. Now we have wrestling on TNT again.
We got wrestling.
Yeah.
We're back in the wrestling business.
It's fantastic.
It's a crazy thing to see. And you can see this is not only does wrestling draw in some consistent ratings for the most part, it also is extra content, more content for them to provide. They're going to have something very similar to the WWE network. So now Warner Media, Warner Brothers is going to have the DC Universe app. They're going to have their main app. They could probably have some kind of AEW app as well. So now you're paying for 3 different things at $9.99, $8.99, $11.99, whatever there is. All this content. We could be paying more than ever when we thought cable was outrageous.
For $15 a month, one service can give you access to basically endless movies and shows with new offerings coming in every week. But enjoy it while it lasts because wheels are already in motion to make those services more profitable for companies and worse for you. Someday soon, to get the same amount of content you're getting now, you're gonna have to pay for more streaming services.
But at this point, in order to get all this content from all these different apps, you're gonna have to have like 10 fucking apps. But it's weird. You see this consolidation, but yet there's growth at the same time. Now that Disney now fully has control of Hulu, they bought out Comcast for their remaining amount, another streaming service that Disney is going to control. And then you got Netflix all on its own. It's kind of a crazy thing with Netflix because it's sitting over here. It's all by itself. And all these companies are trying to basically be Netflix.
Yep, trying to replicate it, exactly.
It has over 88.6 million paid members outside of the US alone, which averages about $9 per month. That is up 39% from last year. So really the challenge comes for Netflix here in the United States. Because as we saw with the WWE network, as we've seen with the DC Universe app, it's easy to set up your app in the United States, but when you're trying to go abroad, hell, even Canada, because the DC Universe app isn't even in Canada, as last I know of, it may have finally been put up, but people in Canada were telling us that like they don't have it. Disney has to contend with Netflix in the States. Same with Comcast, same with Warner Media as well. In this NASDAQ article, it says Disney, Hulu, Comcast, and the rest of the pack can hope stars and libraries of old shows draw subscribers in. Netflix knows what you want and how to give it to you, whether you're in Kansas City or Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur, meaning it has that foothold outside of the States, and it's very strong outside of the States, which a lot of these newer apps are not going to have for quite a while.
I think the biggest part that Netflix has been able to figure out is typically with these streaming services, what we've heard is there's a plateau. They reach a certain amount of subscribers and then it'll just sit at that. And then subscribers that fall off, some new ones that join, and it just kind of circulates from there. But Netflix has been able to continue to grow. They produce original content. They get new content, new deals with different companies to distribute their properties essentially, and they've been able to figure out how to maintain a steady growth, which I think will be key for Disney to do, and why it's important that Disney has started to swoop up things like the partnership with Hulu.
A lot of the things against Netflix is obviously it has a high debt right now, which represents 40% of its physical assets. Hollywood executives also talk confidently about how Netflix will have to ruin itself with commercials, as though that it will be a silver bullet against its growth and not added revenue stream. What the smart people in Hollywood are doing is poaching Netflix executive talent, looking to feed the new global beast. What the smart people in Hollywood are doing is adapting themselves to Netflix's global dominance. And then there's a Forbes article here saying that Disney Plus might be the end of Netflix.
Heavy lies the crown.
Basically talking about all these people are moving to streaming service like Netflix. Today, more than half of American households subscribe to a streaming service. Netflix changed how we watch TV, but they really didn't change what we watch. Netflix management knows content is king. The company spent $12 billion developing original shows last year. It released 88% more original programming in 2018 than it did in previous years. So they're stepping up their original content, and spending on original shows and movies is expected to hit $15 billion this year. The problem is, no matter how much Netflix spends, it has no chance to catch up with its biggest rival. But over the past decade, the core part of the business has been disrupted. More than a third of Disney's revenue comes from cable businesses. As you may know, Disney owns leading sports networks ESPN and ABC News. It makes money delivering this content to millions of Americans through cable providers like AT&T. As you can imagine, cord cutting has hit the business hard. Disney's cable business has staggered over the past 7 years, but in about 175 days, Disney is set to launch its own streaming service called Disney Plus. This thing continues about they're going to pull their content off of Netflix. Disney owns Marvel, Pixar Animation, Star Wars, ESPN, National Geographic, Modern Family, The Simpsons, not to mention the classic characters of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. In 6 of the past 7 years, Disney has produced the world's top-selling movies. So all that content, all that stuff that Disney does that's on there, and I own Fox now, will be pulled off of Netflix. So will Netflix be able to continue at this staggering rate with all that content? Will their original content keep them going, at least in the States? It's quite a question. It's quite an interesting thing because Netflix has a great reputation of letting content creators, directors do what they want.
F is for family.
Oh, yes.
Season 2, edgy for a comedy show, for a animated show.
Yes, that's because we're on Netflix and they let us basically do whatever we want. In fact, the first season, their network notes were push it further, which is basically the dream. If you're in a writer's room,
encouraging them to push things farther, do things more, make their content as much about them as possible. So it is an interesting concept that Disney could eliminate that last bastion of hope that is in the movie business and Netflix. But like I said earlier in that other article, Netflix has quite a foothold in the world market, and it's going to be hard to unseat them from the world market. What happens in America is a little different.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see how a lot of this really unfolds over the next, couple months, couple years, as maybe Disney starts to branch out on the worldwide side of things. I think the biggest thing right now that Disney has been able to do is just continue with all their content that they have and getting Hulu and Fox, and they already own ESPN, ABC, things like that. Now they're putting it under one umbrella. So some of the stuff with cutting the cord over the past several years is you've had all these companies that have tried their own aspect of cable, of, PlayStation or YouTube or whatever it might be, their own aspects of cable, but cable still had a pretty strong foothold. As Matt had talked about earlier, they still provide some sort of internet, whether it's AT&T or Cox or I believe even Comcast. We have Charter Cable here in Reno where we live. So that there's all these different types of cable companies that also provide some sort of internet. What Disney has now been able to do, which will be really interesting to see how it all unfolds, is bring it all under one thing and potentially start competing with cable companies and continuing just to gain content and gain TV shows and have one payment that essentially goes to Disney, and you get their streaming service, but then you also get ESPN and Hulu and all this other original content that they're producing and Hulu's producing. And it's going to be really fascinating to see how strong their foothold becomes on the market.
With this push for content in the world, it did lead me to think, especially with Warner Media, Warner Bros, and AT&T pushing, that how much does that lead to a possible Snyder Cut release? Does that help its chances? Is if they want content, well, hey, there's this movie that could be about 3/4 done. You know, it's debatable how much it would need to go into completing it, but hey, it's more content and it's quicker to do right now than most other things from the ground up, from writing and producing, post-production, pre-production, all of that. This is already at some of its final stages. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yep, it'll definitely be interesting to see how it all starts to unfold, all these companies competing for content.
In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. You're one of very few to make it to the end.
Yes, thank you very much.
Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Comic Movie Marks Podcast and hit the notification bell. You know, all these fucking YouTube channels say this shit, so I'm going to say it now.
Yes, it's perfect. And if you want to hear our full podcast, you can check out our podcast on iTunes or any other podcast subscription service.
Make sure you subscribe. Thanks again.